Hello and welcome to Motorsport Recently. My name is Jack McKenzie, and joining me are my usual partners in crime, Caitlin Penny commentary, and unexpectedly the wonderful Chris Whitfield, as he was meant to be taking social time but didn't. We are starting a little bit.
I did, but I just got home.
Anyway, sorry, we are starting a little bit later today. We're experimenting with new technologies. We're in uncharted territory here. The person we had actually as a super sub will be joining us anyway, however. So we have Cup Cuts of North America driver and host of the Open Wheel podcast, Will Holtz. So welcome to the show, Will. Today we look back at the Formula 1 and Formula 2 races in Bahrain, and of course we have some of your usual segments, including Nando Watch, and of course the miscellaneous stories and points that we will have missed and will be covering at the end of the show. I should also explain that this will be our last episode for a few weeks, and also it has been kind of a slow news week, so it won't be as long as usual. Making up for our extremely long show last week, but fear not, for we still have some very interesting news for you today. And of course, we actually have jingles for the first time, as, you know, we have new technology that we're experimenting with. So we hope you enjoy the show today. Very, very good.
Today. This is going well.
Yes, so last week with Noah Boucher, why don't we get Will to tell us a bit about himself? It'd be good if my tongue could function today. Will.
All right, so I'm a racing kart driver from Illinois, and I also host a few racing podcasts. But this is my first time on one that actually has people listening to it.
Right, and we do actually have some people listening. We have Fantas13 in the chat right now, so obviously everyone's favorite Puerto Ricans in the chat, so that's good stuff. And Caitlin, we also have you as well. Right, should we get right into the news then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, so Formula 1 took us to the deserts of Bahrain for the 999th Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc started on pole for Ferrari, followed by his teammate Sebastian Vettel, and the two Mercedes lined up behind them, with Lewis Hamilton ahead of Valtteri Bottas. So the stage was set for an awesome race. The race got underway, and Charles Leclerc dropped a couple of places almost immediately. However, he managed to get past Valtteri Bottas and Sebastian Vettel. Charles Leclerc would actually dominate for most of the race. He was clearly the fastest. He set the fastest lap of the race, and he'd pull away from Hamilton and Vettel and Bottas, and he was pretty much just leaving them in the dust. However, Charles Leclerc would have power plant issues and could therefore no longer harvest hybrid energy. Automatically, he'd lost 140 brake horsepower from his engine. Lewis Hamilton would begin closing the gap and would go by a devastated Leclerc, as would Valtteri Bottas. A chasing Max Verstappen would begin to close on Valtteri Bottas after getting by Sebastian Vettel, who had spun earlier in the race, which is very painful for Ferrari fans, I'm sure you know, and proceeded then to blow his front wing off, because I believe it was a flat spot that pretty much shook the front wing off that car, if I'm correct. I believe that's what
flat spots.
It was.
Sorry, flat spots from the spin. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, oh, and we have more people in chat, by the way. Writer for us, Freya. Very good. Thank you for joining us, Freya. Yes, so he blew the front wing off. What was looking like almost a certain victory for Charles Leclerc might not have even been safe for a podium. However, with only a few laps to go, both Renaults would break down and bring out the safety car with only a few laps to go. The race would end under safety car with while he was disappointed, would come home to score his first F1 podium ever. So the race results look like this. Lewis Hamilton took victory, followed by Valtteri Bottas. So it pretty much went from an almost certain Ferrari 1-2 to a Mercedes 1-2, with Charles Leclerc in third, and it was Max Verstappen in fourth, and I believe it was Vettel in fifth after having that little spin.
So, I was on a podcast the other day,
And they asked a very interesting question, which is Vettel still one of the greats? Because, yeah, he's won 4 world championships, but since then we've just seen him, you know, for a start in 2014, he really struggled to get to grips with the hybrid unit, and he got absolutely smoked by Daniel Ricciardo. Since then, you know, he's been making mistakes in terms of spinning and getting frustrated, and he's had to be really carried by his teammates. And, yeah, so they asked the question, is Vettel still one of the greats? But I want to flip that question on its head and say, is Ferrari still one of the greats? The way I see it, it's just, you know, it's just Ferrari's arrogance. They've been, yeah, Vettel hasn't been driving the best, but I think that's because of the atmosphere at Ferrari and because of the way they run their team. You know, they don't learn from their mistakes. They just... You know, they mess up with the strategy, they mess up with their engines, their front wing was too fragile, their car... They just somehow manage to find a way to mess it up every time, and it's just infuriating, really.
Or is it just the fact that Mercedes have proved themselves to be superior? But I will say, though, was undeniably brilliant in that Ferrari until... It was that he had a really fast car under him, and I mean, I would say Ferrari are some of the greats, but I mean, some of like their car's really good for the most part, but perhaps maybe the people behind the team haven't been brilliant, I guess. I would say Ferrari are some of the greats. However, they have been making a lot of mistakes as of late.
They're out of the rhythm. They really need to get back into it. It's taken them far too long, especially for such a highly renowned team as Ferrari.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you have something to add to that there?
No. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
I just want to say one thing about Charles Leclerc is just how, as Jack said, how dominant he was in the Ferrari until his engine issues, and I'm predicting we're gonna see him as world champion in a few seasons. I think he needs a season 2,
right?
You know, get used to driving for a top team, but after that, I think he's gonna be just dominating.
No, I totally. Sorry, go ahead.
And honestly, like, Ferrari's making far too many silly mistakes.
Yeah, as I said,
like,
yeah.
That's the problem. Like, and they usually start out, like, the pattern is usually, and I compare this to the Toronto Maple Leafs, my home hockey team.
I was going to say, what car do they drive?
Yes. Well, they drive in Formula 2. The thing is, they start off well at the beginning of the year. Then around midway, they start to taper off a little bit, and then by, I think, well, last year, of course, it really started to unravel around, what, Germany?
Yeah, and
a year ago?
The thing I notice is that they don't learn from their mistakes. They do the same things over and over again in terms of especially their strategy. That's one thing that keeps failing with them. And it reminds me of that scene from Rush where Niki Lauda is testing a Ferrari for the first time, and he comes into the pits and then gives them a load of useful advice about how, you know, the car's too understeery and how it's not handling well through the corners. And they go, "You can't say that, it's a Ferrari." You see, it's because I just think Ferrari's too arrogant to accept their own mistakes, and as a result, they're going to keep letting down highly talented drivers.
They're never going to accept their mistakes, no matter how much people beg them to. They're not going to learn.
Which is why they're going to keep letting down talented drivers like Charles and Seb. But as you said, Charles Leclerc drove a fantastic race, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wins several races come the end of the season.
I think everyone felt for Charles Leclerc after that. That was pain. That was so painful for him.
And I have to say, like, I watched the press brief, or not the press briefing, the meeting room afterwards.
Okay.
And everybody, like, even Lewis Hamilton knew that he didn't win that race. It was Charlotte. It was basically handed to him.
Well,
but the problem is the way he said it.
How do you say
really
it?
rubbed me the wrong way. It was, and I'm basically, I'm a little biased. I'm not really a fan of Lewis Hamilton. I'm just gonna say it flat out. I'm not a fan of his attitude. I think he's a good driver, but he's got the worst attitude in racing. Honestly,
Same here.
I don't think that's necessarily a controversial.
No, you have a good
opinion.
attitude, Caitlin.
Oh no, you know what I meant, right?
And you're a good racing driver. But like the way he said that it almost felt like he was saying something like something along the lines of, I may have won this, but you're gonna win sometime down the road. That kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, just because of his previous attitude. It
just seems fake at this point.
Very.
Well, I don't think so. I think it's going to be close so long as Ferrari can learn from their mistakes. And, well, that's the problem. They're probably not going to. But anyway, we should probably move on, because the race wasn't only taking place at the front. We also had racing further back. There was quite a bit of contact, especially near the start. We had many cars sparking. I think Carlos Sainz got involved in that, and there was Lance Stroll and Grosjean, I think, was involved at the start. Giovinazzi and Kvyat came together. That's a little bit of a controversial one, because I seem to be one of the only people who thinks that Kvyat was to blame for that. I think that Giovinazzi got far enough alongside him before the braking zone for Kvyat to have to give him room, and he didn't. He turned in. So I don't know if you guys have any opinions on that one.
Right. Also, I think another thing I found interesting. I think Pierre Gasly's underperformed again.
Yeah, he got beat by Alfa Romeo and McLaren.
Which unfortunately leads to my theory that Gasly, I don't think, is the right fit for Red Bull. I don't think he is.
He did so well in the Toro Rosso last year, but now he's doing actually worse in the Red Bull, so...
I don't understand it. I really don't.
I don't know where it's going wrong here.
I don't see how a driver can have such a dip in performance with such a good car. Did he just, like, get left behind in the off-season or something? I genuinely don't... You know, it's not even too different a team either. He's still working with a lot of the same staff in Red Bull. So, I don't really get why he's so far off the pace. Is it...
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm wondering whether he was just not as good in the Toro Rosso as we thought. Maybe Hartley was just struggling even more. Who knows? I just don't get why Gasly's so far behind.
I liken it a little bit to Even Capelli. Even Capelli, for those younger fans, used to drive for Leighton House in 1990-91. It was a midfield team that he nearly won the French Grand Prix in 1990 on a tire strategy. 2 years later, we see him in a Ferrari, and he outright struggled. Like, he was one of the... Honestly, it was like he was just dead weight in the car. Like, he would either have, like, speed issues or would crash. And ultimately, that led to him retiring from Formula One because there was just a stigma of being at a top level team, and then seemingly just like bottoming out. And I'm afraid that this is just like Pierre Gasly.
In Capelli's
maybe
defense, Jean Alesi did have some very similar poor reliability, but he was much quicker as well. Sorry, Jack, go ahead.
Well, maybe Pierre Gasly's just sort of cracking under pressure. I don't. Maybe just the move to Red Bull's a bit too much. Although what I will say could be interesting, and I saw this on social media over the week. What a story would it be if Daniel Kvyat, the man who joined Toro Rosso, then joined Red Bull, then got dropped from Red Bull, then got dropped from Toro Rosso, then got brought back onto Toro Rosso. Imagine if he rejoined Red Bull after all of that.
It would be the most chaotic up and down story of the decade. I should remind you, Daniel Kvyat is the driver who beat Daniel Ricciardo in a Red Bull in terms of the championship, not just specific races. So Kvyat has potential. He just made too many silly mistakes in the past. And he's back. He's made he has genuinely made quite a good return drive. Just checking his results now, he scored a couple of points already. So it's been a good return drive despite the incident in the last race. Kvyat is definitely a driver to look out for, and considering the blame culture at Red Bull, how they do tend to demote drivers and then wonder why they haven't got any drivers left. I wouldn't be surprised if Kvyat's then elevated back to Red Bull, or if they decide to take a really big risk and put Alexander Albon in the car instead.
Has that ever happened before? In the history of Formula One, has that ever happened where someone started with the development car, then went to the top car, then got demoted, then went back?
We haven't really had development teams for that long, so no, we haven't. Yeah, and I don't think we've ever seen that with any other team either.
Anyway, before we move on, I think we should talk about the championship standings. So Valtteri Bottas currently leads the championship on 44 points, followed by his teammate Lewis Hamilton on 43. Then it's Max Verstappen in third on 27 points, followed by Charles Leclerc on 26, and Sebastian Vettel on 22. Now, looking down the rest of the order, interestingly, Kimi Räikkönen is in 6th place in the championship with his Alfa Romeo on 10 points. Excellent. Can we get a boah for that?
Boah. Can we get some boah in chat?
Ice cream for everyone.
I'm gonna contribute my boah to the chat. So, is there any final thoughts on the race before we move on to Formula 2?
I'd say it was a good race. Although I will say, what has happened with Renault?
Oh no, it's just not going well.
It's almost like I will say their orchestrated engine malfunctions seemed like a mercy killing.
Admittedly, we are only two races into the season, but yeah, they definitely seem to be the least reliable team on the grid so far. But
Will, I think Will had something to say before we move on.
Okay.
One driver I want to bring some attention to is Lando Norris.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. How did we not mention him?
Get in there.
Of course, Lando finished 6th in the race at the weekend. And I pointed out in another podcast that was in a couple of days ago, Lando is just Nando with a learner plate. Like, that's all. That's that's who he is.
Lando is Nando with a learner plate.
Yeah, that's.
I'm gonna play this, but.
It's not time for Nando Watch just yet, can I just say?
With a learner plate.
He's filled his seat perfectly. It's amazing.
Oh my god. Lando Norris, of course, finished 6th. Yeah, we think we just said that, didn't we?
Yeah.
That's okay. Brilliant stuff, I must say.
I can't believe we didn't mention him. Thank you for bringing that up, Will. I would have forgotten that. Sorry.
We're gonna need a new segment in the future called Lando Watch.
Lando Watch.
Well, Well, if he
time for
tries
that
other
yet, though.
series, then sure.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my god! All right, I think we should move on to Formula
Okay,
2.
yeah. So Formula 2, we had two races at the weekend, of course, at Bahrain, and actually the same podium for both of them. So it's quite clear who the drivers to look out for are going to be. We had Luca Giotto taking pole, and of course pole is worth 4 points, so that's significant. And those 4 points would end up being the decider in the championship lead. So Giotto leads the championship. Oh, sorry, that was an awful noise I just made. My apologies.
Was that a sneeze?
Sort of, yeah. It was kind of like a sneeze and an intake of breath at the same time. So
Oh,
anyway,
I love those.
he ended up having a really bad start to the feature race actually, and dropping back several places. Good recovery drive brought him back up to second despite dropping to sixth on the opening lap. So a really good recovery drive from Giotto. But it was Nicholas Latifi who took the advantage and ended up winning the feature race. That is, of course, Nicholas Latifi, last year's Sahara Force India and Racing Point reserve driver, who did a couple of Friday practice runs. And then, of course, in race 2, Luca Giotto ended up taking the victory in that one, again followed by Seti Camara and Latifi. So it was the same podium, just reshuffled, and that means that after the first 2 races of the championship, it's Luca Giotto leading the championship by 2 points from Nicolas Latifi, Sergio Sette Camara, and then Louis Delastraz, Antoine Hubert, last year's GP3 champion, Nick de Vries, my pick for the championship, only in 6th position. That's a disappointing start to the series. However, he did take fastest lap in the second race. Guan Yu Zhu took first lap in the first race, and then Mick Schumacher, who of course has the biggest hype around him going into this weekend, and who we will definitely be mentioning later on, was 8th in the championship after the opening round. Then Jack Aitken was 9th, and Nobuharu Matsushita rounds out the top 10. That is the Drivers' Championship after the first round of the FIA Formula 2 Championship.
Right, so we need a new jingle. So whenever we talk about Mick Schumacher, we need to play Thomas the Tank Engine for the hype train.
Oh
no! Oh, Ned! I don't think the family of the Reverend W. Audrey would be very pleased with that.
Nah, sorry.
So how would we say that Mick Schumacher's done for his first Formula 2 race?
Actually,
ahead.
quite good. Like, there are people saying, well, he's the son of Michael Schumacher, of course he's going to dominate. No, that's not the case. Yes, he has just come off the back of a very successful Formula 3 championship campaign where he won it. But then again, Formula 2 is a big step up. 8th place on his debut. Not bad. We'll see what he can do later on in the series. I'm expecting him to have more pace towards the end of the year compared to his opponents. But at the start of the year, this is a good solid start to his series, and I wouldn't be surprised if the real Mick Schumacher results come at the very end.
Right. Okay.
I'd say he did an impressive job, but hopefully, yeah. As Caitlin said, hopefully, it's just the first race of the year. It's not indicative of how he's gonna do throughout the year.
Is there anything else we want to say about Formula 2?
Not really. That all seems okay. Sean Galisle did an impressive drift. That was quite impressive. Yeah.
Funnily enough, I didn't have any KFC when I was out earlier.
Okay.
Oh, good stuff.
And yeah, that was about it.
For Formula 2.
So I think we should move on actually to another thing that Mick Schumacher has been doing this week. No, wait, that's later. Sorry, ignore me.
That is later. Oh, actually, I'm just trying to check is Will, you still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're just a bit quiet. I think we need to be good house guests. Anyway, it's debut last week, and it's now time for
Nando Watch.
Hold on, just finding the jingle. Right, we do have a jingle for it this week. Let's play the jingle.
He's got that thirst to win the Triple Crown. St. James may bust. You can't keep him down.
Unbearable.
This is Nando Watch.
Oh, guys, you spoke over it. Never mind. So that was the first introduction to Nando Watch. And Jack, what's Nando been doing this week?
Right, so thank you very much for that jingle. We are actually really happy to have jingles now, by the way. Freddie had some interesting things to say after the Bahrain test. And he said, I think everyone thinks we are the best, but it's difficult to prove because, especially in Formula One, unless you are the right package that season, you cannot prove it. And now winning the 24 Hours of Le Mans, winning Daytona, winning Sebring, hopefully being competitive in the Indy 500 to be the best driver in the world, which I think I am. So that's pretty much him saying that he thinks he's the best driver in the world.
Well, can you name anyone who has accomplished that in this era?
You think of anyone else who finished the Rolex 24 at Daytona in 23 hours and 30 minutes or something, or whatever it was?
Admittedly, Nando is definitely one of the best drivers in the world. I want to give that to him. He's one of the best. It's very difficult to say who is the best. I'd say at the minute, regrettably, probably Lewis Hamilton. But Fernando is absolutely one of the best in the world. He's definitely achieved more than almost anyone else before or since. Well, I say or since, that doesn't make much sense, but yeah. He's going
to be the best driver in the future as well. So yes, that's something else that nobody in the world has done. That's why Nando Alonso is the best driver in the entire world.
Go on then.
Anyway,
has he won at Oh wait, he has.
Yes, he has. Yes, he has.
Has he won at Le Mans? Oh.
Yeah.
Has he won at
in the proper Sebring 12 hours, and then he will officially be the greatest driver in the entire world. Fernando Alonso for president. I don't think anyone, because he is just amazing.
Seeing as Will is
time alone.
Okay, no. Seeing as Will is our correspondent from the United States, I think Will should cover the next story on Nando Watch. Will, what's Nando going to be doing in terms of IndyCar?
I don't think he has the document, so I think those honors are back to me as the rightful host of Nando Watch.
Sorry.
Or just copy it into the Discord so that he can read it out.
There you go, Will, quick, before Jack can take it.
I'm getting my story stolen from me. This is great.
Yeah. So, Fernando Alonso will be testing an IndyCar with McLaren at Texas Motor Speedway on April 9th, ahead of the Indianapolis 500 this May.
Thank you, Will.
Yes.
What's going on? He will be testing there with IndyCar's most recent winner, Colton Herta.
Okay, jolly good, yeah. So,
is it a rookie test that he's doing?
I don't know,
yes, I believe that he has to test on an oval before he can officially race at Indy. I was listening to an interview with Colton Herta, and he said that they needed to do that.
But he raced at Indianapolis before without doing Texas, I believe.
Well, he didn't do Texas, but he did oval testing before he raced there. So, because the thing with Fernando is he has raced at Indy before, but he did it in a Dallara DW12. This one, of course, the DW18.
IR18.
IR18. Sorry, he hasn't tested yet, and we'll need to get to grips with that before he inevitably wins the 500. So, yeah.
So will Fernando actually... It'll be interesting to see if Fernando Alonso is as good as he was in the DW12, because last year at the Indianapolis 500, we saw that the the IR18 reacted very differently in a pack to the DW12. So we saw a lot of cars just being taken out of the race just by getting into the dirty air of the car in front of them and just looping the car, basically. So the question is, will Fernando Alonso be as good last time he drove an Indy car?
I believe he'll be quick. I think a lot of people thought he might be limited by Carlin, the team that McLaren's partnering with. I actually don't think he will be as much as people may think, as Patricio O'Ward was in a Carlin and was extremely quick at COTA.
Well, Carlin are quite a new team to IndyCar, but they do have the technical expertise, so this partnership could actually work out quite well.
Yeah.
I think he's going to win it. I'm going to be bold. I genuinely think he's going to win the 500 this year.
I hope
to win it.
I just hope that
I don't think he is.
I just hope that he doesn't get bumped.
Oh,
because remember, there's a distinct possibility of that. Because at Indianapolis, nobody, and I repeat, nobody is safe. In '93, Bobby Rahal, former winner of the race, and the defending IndyCar champion, was bumped from the field. The defending Indy 500 winners, Rod Penske, Al Unser Jr., and Emerson Fittipaldi in '95, they won the race in '94. They were bumped the next year. James Hinchcliffe, just last year, was bumped from the field. So
he was actually in contention for the championship at that point in the year, if I remember correctly.
He was second in the championship, I believe.
Yeah.
What do you think would happen here? So if Fernando Alonso did get bumped, would he get bought into another ride?
I think he'd buy one of the other Carlin seats for sure.
Yeah,
just like Ryan Hunter-Reay did.
Although, having said that, Hinch didn't. It was not like Hinch last year when when he got bumped. He didn't just buy into Jack Harvey's seat. And Penske, when they got bumped in '95, sure, they bought two cars from Carl Hogan and Dick Simon, but both cars failed to qualify. They didn't take the seats of Bobby Rahal and Raul Boesel when they got bumped. So basically, Hunter-Reay in 2011, I think that may have just been a one-time thing, because of the sponsor. But it depends, really, on what AutoNation does, but I just hope that doesn't happen.
Okay, moving on from whether or not Fernando Alonso will get bumped from the Indy 500, is the test at Texas going to help him, do you think?
I'd say so.
I think it'll get... Oh, you go.
I'd say so. Because the more oval experience that you have, I didn't know where I was going with this.
Yeah, it's okay. All track time. I think what you're trying to say is that all track time helps.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Oh, what was Will gonna say?
Yeah, I think that'll at least give him a bit of an idea of how the new chassis will react on an oval. But depending on and especially depending on how he likes his car setup, I was listening to David Land's interview with Colton Herta. Herta usually likes a loose car. He obviously wants a much more stable car at Indianapolis for he doesn't want to end up like Ed Jones or Danica Patrick or Tony Kanaan did. But
Castroneves.
And Castroneves, and I think it was Sage Karam was the other car that hit the wall. But yeah, I think seat time will help out Fred Nando. But
Nando. By the way, pick up David Land. We always have to say that.
Pick those names up, and but honestly, yeah, experience is going to help. Will help anybody. That's the thing. the more seat time you had, honestly, I wish he was entered in a couple more races, either last year or this, just to get himself a little bit more acquainted with the car.
Yeah, you say that. I think that if he doesn't win the Indy 500 next year, he's going to be going for a full IndyCar entry next year, so the full season. And he's going to keep doing that until he wins the 500, which I'm sure he will do.
Driving an IndyCar on a road course really helped Fernando that much because it's a completely different thing.
I still think he's going to do it because he's got to do something. So
yeah, if anything, he might. This hasn't been announced, and I doubt it. But the IndyCar Grand Prix would be a good option because it's at Indianapolis, so it's not like, and it's during the month of May, so they're already there. I think that'd be a good option for him if he wanted to do a race. Because obviously now that ISM has been replaced, there's no oval race before Indy, and even with ISM, it was still with the higher downforce aero kit.
And he's driven a Grand Prix at Indianapolis before as well.
Yeah,
yep, from 2001 to 2008.
There you go. 7, but yeah, there you
7.
go.
Yeah,
I said 8.
1 year off. Nice try.
I've been up since 6 a.m.
Nice try, Chris. You were close. Well done. Sorry.
I was a year off.
Sorry.
What's a year between friends?
Yes.
I've been up since 6 a.m.
I've been up since 6:20 a.m. my time, but time zones are confusing.
I've been up since 2 p.m.
That's because you go to sleep at what, 4?
Yeah, but anyway, less about me.
Right. So does that finish off everyone's favorite Spaniard stories for this week?
I don't have anything else to say, so unless one of you guys do.
Right,
well,
so that's been...
honestly, like I have to say, I love the jingle that the jingles that Caitlin have made, and I actually, if I may, I actually have an idea that I can play the jingle on my phone, and then hold it up to the microphone.
No, it's okay. I've got the next jingle. It's okay.
Anyway, so that's been this week's edition of...
He's gonna do it. Nando Watch.
Nando Watch. I was expecting the jingle, but that's okay. You do have an opportunity to play another one because it's now time for all the things we've missed in hand gesture.
Points that we missed and therefore covering now TM.
Okay, Chris, I've got the main jingle. Hold on a second.
I was actually playing the jingle.
Yes, except I can do it much clearer. So except you won't be able to hear it. So you guys be quiet for a second. Sorry about this. We will be much more coordinated next time. It's just this is the first time we've done it. Right, Chris, would you like to introduce it again? Without the jingle. I've got the jingle.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for another installment of everybody's favorite news cycle. Bing.
Miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and therefore recovering now TM. Bing. Okay, there we go. That worked.
Bing. Bing.
I've replayed it. See, it wouldn't really be an episode of Motorsport recently unless we had some sort of technical difficulty.
Sorry, you got the gist of it. That'll work much better next week. I promise. Sorry.
We were due a technical difficulty anyway because it's actually been going well the past couple of weeks. Anyway, right. Chris, would you like to tell us about what's been going on at Laguna Seca?
Yes, Hub Auto Corsa dominated the California 8-hour in the Ferrari driven by Tim Slade, Virgin Australian supercar driver, Miguel Molina, and Nick Foster at the wheel of that, holding off the the Yellow Menace, I call it, of our motorsport. With Maxi Book, Maxi Guts, and everybody's favorite person criticizing Australians, Rafael Marciello. And
Right.
I have to say, I was kind of disappointed by the car count in this year's California 8-hour, because last year they had 34 cars.
It was actually a really small grid, I noticed. Yeah.
It was 20 cars. And there was only one cup car.
Ooh.
Like, only one cup car, which was a Super Trofeo. And I think, like 3 or 4 GT4 cars.
Now, why do you think that was?
Honestly, they should merge the series. Like, SRO should make it, like, the SRO should allow, like, TCR cars and, like, TCR, some GT4 guys, some GT3, Sprint X competitors.
Yeah, that would be nice. Why do you think there were so few entries this year?
I think it may have been because of commitments from other teams, but yeah, there just wasn't very much interest in this.
That is a
unfortunately, and yeah, and honestly, I really hope there is, because I like the event. It's a good event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, just at least it's better than the first year where they had, I believe, 15 cars.
The only thing
Anyway.
that I heard about this year's California 8 Hours was when Jack was watching Chaz Mostert with intent, and I take it he's been trying to shy away from speaking about how that bit went.
Baz Bostert.
Baz Bostert.
Baz Bostert.
I was screaming at my not my TV, my laptop last week's show, and I was in complete distress as Maz Chostert was being overtaken to win.
So there you go.
There we go. Anyway, moving on to some Formula One news. Now, this is normally where I would want the Thomas the Tank Engine music to play. Mick Schumacher has been testing for Ferrari, and he's been doing quite well. And so this was at the Bahrain test after the Grand Prix, and I believe he was actually second fastest in that test session, and I believe it was behind Max Verstappen.
Quite possibly, yeah. The thing with Mick Schumacher, really, the most notable thing is the massive hype that comes with him. And it was great to see his mum, Corrie Schumacher, there as well. But yeah, of course, everyone knows the Schumacher for one thing, and that is the fact that M. Schumacher is a name that we've seen before in Formula One. But I must say, some of the headlines I saw about it were really blowing it out of proportion. I saw one which genuinely said, Mick Schumacher sets incredible lap time, and this is why Lewis Hamilton should be worried. And I'm like,
oh no, that's
no.
Was that Autosport?
I have no idea, but whoever it was.
It probably was.
It's
the
just
most
like
clickbaity website in the world.
Yeah, it's the amount of clickbait that came out of this.
They're just trying to sell papers at this point.
Yeah.
They're just trying to sell newspapers.
No, I don't want to badmouth Autosport too much because we need sponsors, and if it's them, yes. Yeah, so if anyone from Motorsport is watching, if you'd like to sponsor us, our door's always open.
Zach Brown, we're sorry.
Oh my
But
goodness.
yeah, in all seriousness, Schumacher did a good job. I'm not expecting to see. Well, to be honest, I'm expecting him to see him in Formula One too soon. I'm expecting him to be rushed in, because of his name. But whatever the case, he's not going to be here this year or next year. So don't get too worked up about this. It was only a test, and we'll see how he does in F2 this year.
He tested the Ferrari and the Alfa Romeo, yeah?
Did he?
I believe he did.
As far as I know, he only tested the Ferrari. I know that Raikkonen tested both, but I don't think Schumacher did.
Will, do you have anything to say about Mick Schumacher before we move on?
No.
All right. Okay.
Okay then.
Good answer.
Good answer.
Good answer. Good answer.
So here's some stories that you might be able to comment on because we have some open wheel stuff, which we know you're very much a part of with your podcast. Vienna has actually started conversations with the possibility that they could be hosting a Grand Prix in 2020.
Oh my goodness.
So not a Grand Prix, an E-Prix.
Oh,
not a Grand
Vienna?
Prix.
I'm like, don't use Austria. All right.
Goodness me. For some reason, I was thinking of Venice, and I was like, they don't even have roads.
Let's have a Grand Prix on
Venice Prix.
Let's have an E-Prix in a canal.
Oh my goodness,
I can
yes.
give you and electrocute all of the fish.
Yeah.
Peter hates him.
Oh my goodness. That would be quite interesting, to say the least.
That's amazing. Sorry. Okay.
We're gonna have an electric power boat race at. Yeah. So anyway, we're having it's not so it's not Venice. It's actually Vienna, which is in Austria, in a different country entirely. So that's quite interesting. Some more European cities, and like we just let's hope if they do have an E-Prix in Vienna, it's not like the track design which we touched on last week.
Oh yeah.
That we saw in Sanya and Hong Kong, because they weren't very good, and actually neither was Chile either, because it's just kind of boring and kind of a wreck fest and not very interesting at all.
We can't have chili.
And very good. More Formula E news actually as well. Mercedes will be testing their Formula E car for next season.
Okay.
I don't think they've actually done that.
They have done, right?
See who ends up driving that car, because
what they'll mainly
they
be
don't-
testing there is the sorry, the powertrain, because the actual or the gearing, I expect, because the actual chassis is going to be exactly the same. So it's going to be mainly the powertrain and the gearing they'll be testing there.
Yeah, right. It'd be interesting to see who ends up testing that car, because I don't think they've announced any drivers for next season.
Ooh, have they? I could search that for you. Yeah, you move on while I search that.
Right. Anyway, I think Will's just muted himself. If you're still there, you can unmute yourself. Anyway, right. Talks actually. We're moving on to some IndyCar news. There are talks of IndyCar. Oh, you sneezed. That's why you muted yourself. Anyway, there's some IndyCar news, and there are actually talks of IndyCar returning to Japan. However, CEO of IndyCar, Mark Miles, said this would be difficult. Obviously, there are a lot of Japanese brands involved with. I have actually been to Japan before, but in terms of scheduling, apparently this would be quite difficult to do, because they're saying that if they were to go abroad, it would be at the start of the season, and just going to Japan would be very difficult and stuff. So we could see IndyCar.
I say stop complaining. You know, there are series that go to far more countries than that and organize it perfectly. So with IndyCar,
the thing is,
IndyCar
are working with a lot. Like IndyCar's not Formula One, so they're not going to be going abroad all the time. So they have a lot smaller budgets to work with. That the teams that they don't have the budgets of Formula One teams, so it'd be difficult to get them across the globe and stuff.
Yes,
and then also just trying to work out a time
before.
where the climate will work.
They've done it before, though.
Was it this? Was it at the
Yes.
start of the season?
It was in April, at the Twin Ring Motegi.
Yeah.
Between 1998 and 2010. What year was the earthquake?
They said, but they said that if they were to go back to Japan, if they were going to go abroad, it'd be in like January or February, which is quite difficult because Japan's climate is difficult to work with. So,
well, reschedule the dates then.
Or how about this? Run the series from March to November, like they have any other season until Mark Miles came in along.
Yeah. So Japan. So I think they do want to host it in January or February, which isn't going to work. So if they're going to go back to Japan, it should probably be later in the season. Will, any thoughts on this?
No, I lost connection for a minute, so I
Still
couldn't
here?
hear the entire thing. But
Oh,
I'm still
sorry.
here.
Okay.
I think Will's talking, but I can't hear him.
Oh, can you?
I
He
can.
said he lost connection, but yeah, I think you may have muted Will by accident, Jack. Okay, so
You need to unmute him.
We've got some IMSA news.
just before we
IMSA
move on,
WEC.
I want to point out Mercedes Formula E drivers for next year. We have Stoffel Van Dorn and the very popular driver TBA. My favourite driver.
TBA. He's a good driver.
Yeah,
he's a good
yeah.
little driver there.
Almost as good as last name, first name.
First name, last name, yeah.
First name,
Oh,
last name. My apologies.
Actually, both of them are good. First name, last name, and last name, first name. They're actually quite good. Quite little
Okay,
drivers.
I didn't know there was. I didn't know they were both racing drivers. Okay, I may have
Yeah.
got the two mixed up.
Last
I'd
name,
love to
first
see-
name.
I'd love to see a race between last name, last name, and TBA.
Oh, that'd be a showdown. Of the
And what
century.
about TBD with an accent?
Huh.
Oh,
That's some
brain
thinking emoji right there.
to explode. Anyway,
All right, we've got some IMSA news.
Some IMSA
well,
news.
IMSA and WEC. As Pippo Durrani has been announced to join the Risi Competizione lineup in the number 82 Ferrari, alongside of Mazda DPI driver Oliver Jarvis and Jules Gounon. Now this is a stacked lineup in a I will say Giuseppe Risi knows how to pick good talent for sure.
I don't think this is IMSA news stuff. More WEC news.
Well, and it's an IMSA team.
Yes.
But yeah, like
When was the last time we saw them at Le Mans? Was it the crash that they had a few years ago?
they were in the race last year, I think.
I think. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they only
Anyway,
do Daytona and Le Mans, really.
And they did
And sometimes
Sebring
VIR.
Petit Le Mans. And they did Petit Le Mans and Sebring.
Yes, and I think VIR as well.
Nice.
But that is a good lineup, and honestly, I think I foresee good things for that team.
Yes. Anyway. Fur hat time, and I actually
The fur
have a
hat.
Fur hat. It is now equipped. Right. You may continue.
Caitlin, would you mind singing the Russian national anthem, please?
I don't know the lyrics, but I can do the tune. Let me just think
Yes,
of
the
it.
tune.
Right. We'll have
The
that as a jingle next-
communism is happening.
Russia, yeah.
Yes. Oris, in the story we touched on last week, has actually now confirmed their partnership with G-Drive for a full season in the European Le Mans Series. Spa and Le Mans in WEC, in the LMP2 class in a rebranded Orica 07 known as the Oris 01. Now, you know how much I feel about rebranded LMP2 chassis. So this kind of confuses me a little bit as to how this is allowed. But it is G Drive, so they can actually defend the win that they didn't get. And
question: how much was the KGB involved in this?
Well, I think the Kremlin had something to do with that, but you know, but in all seriousness, I really hope that that G Drive stroke Oris wins Le Mans and then gets excluded for refueling.
Collusion.
You really just want the exact same
collusion.
thing that happened. So you really just want the exact same thing that happened
I should,
last year?
yeah, I should
that
point out that while we are sort of like making fun of Russia, I want it to be in kind of like a light-hearted way. You know, I have nothing against Russians, so just throwing it out there.
There's nothing against Russians. That's why I'm wearing a fur hat, because it's lovely.
Okay.
I
It's
think I'll just wear
lovely.
this. I'll just wear this for the rest of the show.
You know we
actually.
can't
Yeah,
see your
but
fur
it-
hat right, Jack.
Hmm?
You know we can't see your fur hat right. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, but I am enjoying it
Okay, that's good. That's good.
behind the mic, and I'm enjoying the fur hat, and I think I'll do the rest of the show in it.
Okay.
We have some rallycross. We have some rallycross news for the first time on this show, and we will actually most likely be getting a correspondent for that.
And
but-
actually, this just broke. One of them was a first-time winner in World Rallycross in the Abu Dhabi race, as Kevin Hansen claimed his very first victory in his Peugeot after Nicholas Gronholm's Hyundai was given a time penalty for contact in the final race. And unfortunately, but I will say, good on Kevin Hansen on his first victory. And also, there is an unconfirmed source. I'm not sure. Apparently, 4 manufacturers are. There was this week a proposal for a spin-off series to start in 2021 called EWRX.
Yes.
Basically, Electric World Rallycross.
Oh Lord.
Unfortunately, you need to have the FIA stated last year that 4 manufacturers were needed to get EWRX regulations passed. When that
Right.
failed, a second vote was scheduled for Friday, March 29th, with at least 3 manufacturers and 1 specialist supplier required. Unfortunately, this seems to have failed, unfortunately, which doesn't really surprise me, but at the same time, it like I said, it doesn't surprise me because really it's not really well liked among fans that want to, because you figure Rallycross, people like the noise that people love noise in Rallycross.
Well, the way I see it, we don't need an electric series for everything. You know, electric cars are definitely going to be, or definitely greener cars are going to be the future, but we don't need an electric series for everything. You know, that's what we've got. Formula E4 and that proposed motorbike series. Really, that's all you need. You know, aside from that, I think it's just up to the main series to go greener. We don't need add-on series.
Anyway, I think we'll move on from Rallycross because we have we've just decided to do an IndyCar preview. And
Nice.
this week we're in Sweet Home Alabama.
Da 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 da.
Yes,
Yeah.
for some IndyCar. And
Actually,
what's interesting that's just happened, pretty much.
Okay, well, you can cover the story, seeing as you've been following it.
so there are two things that are big in IndyCar right now. The one that is really perplexing to, I think, a lot of people is how in practice the black primary tire or the black tires were faster in some cases than the red tires. This changed in qualifying where the pole sitter, Takuma Sato, used red tires. But it was still an interesting bit where the fastest drivers used the black tires, which have historically been slower with more life in them compared to the red tires.
That's what they're designed for, so I'm a little bit perplexed by that, but anyway. That may be just down to the track conditions. Sometimes temperature can have an effect in it, because really the advantage that the red tires have is that they get into the optimal temperature quicker, and yeah, just maybe something weird going with the temperatures that's affecting that, or something along those lines. But yeah, whatever the case, that appears to be the case. And then, as you've already mentioned, we've just seen the qualifying results as well, with Takuma Sato taking pole position. Now, Takuma isn't usually a driver who goes well at this circuit, if I remember correctly. So that's
Well, Takuma Sato's been a bit invisible this season so far, and he was a bit invisible for at the end of last season as well. He just wasn't really doing anything.
I mean,
so now he's
he won at
actually back at
Portland.
the front.
He won Portland.
He won Portland, yeah.
Is this
but
his first pole?
I was just going to ask that.
And then
No,
one
in fact,
thing-
he scored 7 poles. This is his 8th.
Right. Okay.
I wonder when the last one was.
Ooh.
So we also noticed that James Hinchcliffe was also quite fast in. Was it qualifying or practice?
He topped practice 2.
Yeah, he was really quick. He
then
ended
again-
up
Where is he
qualifying?
Well, that's pretty good though. You can
Then
work with
again,
that.
Hinch has always been good at Barber.
Yeah.
He always has. Honestly,
Sorry.
I'm genuinely looking forward to this race. Just hopefully it doesn't rain and Hinch winds up with wet trousers.
Oh golly, yeah. Infamous interview. Incidentally, Takuma's last
Talking
pole
to
was...
a guy who just wet himself.
Yeah. Incidentally, Takuma's last pole was Pocono 2017. So yeah, but anyway, he's on pole here today. I'm just trying to find the full qualifying results. I know that the front row of the grid is Takuma, followed by, is it Graham Rahal in second?
Yeah, so it was the Rahal Letterman Lanigan sweep for the front row, which is pretty cool to see, as they've not been really the fastest cars this year.
Like I said, yeah, they've been a little bit invisible so far, but then again, we're only at the start of the season, so it's difficult to tell right now.
Right, qualifying results. You have Takuma Sato, who's going to be starting from pole position tomorrow, followed by Graham Rahal, Scott Dixon, James Hinchcliffe, Sebastian Bourdais, and Spencer Piggott, who were your top 6, your Firestone Fast 6, and then Power, Rossi, Herta, and Ferrucci just missed out, with Hunter Ray and Harvey also in the top 12.
Right. So who's your pick then for tomorrow? Well, not tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? No.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Well, for me, it's 5 days from now, so good stuff. Thank you, IndyCar.
I'm probably going to say, I'm going to be bold and say Sebastian Bourdais.
Where's he starting?
He's starting 5th, and I think Bourdais got that. He's especially good at starts, and he's got that kind of that kind of fire, especially seeing as he hasn't had a terrifically great start to the season. I think he's going to be right up there, and he is a bold pick for the win, especially seeing as he's currently 15th in the championship after his retirement at St. Petersburg. But yeah, I still, Bourdais is my pick for the win.
My pick is,
Right.
I'm going to go with the guy right in front of him, James Hinchcliffe.
I'm also going with James Hinchcliffe as well.
A Hinch fan, but I think Hinch, he also hasn't had the best season. He wasn't the fastest at St. Pete, and then obviously he and Felix Rosenfist made contact at Coda. But Hinch, I think he's got some determination. I think Aero SPM can definitely. They have given him the speed. He was the fastest in practice too, and I believe he was fastest in the Fast 12. He came in with a flyer at the end to make the Fast 6, and was fastest in the Fast 12.
He was,
and he may have been, and then
he was.
I think I'm not
Or
sure on
Rosenquist.
this, that he had the fastest time, because Takuma Sato took pole with a 108.593. I think Hinch was in the 108.4s for his fast time.
Right.
I am
And,
not entirely sure, but yeah, quite possibly. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I'm
This is
gonna
your
go
pick.
with, I'm probably gonna say either Joseph Newgarden, Will Power, or Graham Rahal.
Ah, come on, you got to pick one. That's yeah.
You can't just pick half the field. Come on, let's have a definitive. Let's have
I
an
think
I
answer.
it's
only
going to
picked
be
half the
Dixon and
Penskes.
Hinchcliffe and Pigott and Power and Herter and Ferrucci and Honda Ray. And...
No, Ferrucci!
I was
No,
joking.
not
I was joking.
Ferrucci, no, thank you.
Ferrucci, please. I'm gonna pick Graham Rahal.
Okay, Graham Rahal from second on the grid. That's not a bad shout. Interestingly,
Right.
none of us went for the pole to Takuma Sato. I think, Takuma's a good driver. He just doesn't tend to deliver.
Yeah,
Well, the thing is, he's a decent driver. Like, of course, he is an Indy winner.
Yep, Indy 500 winner, ex-Formula 1. Yep.
Yep, and he did win Portland last year.
yeah.
He did. And he can
Yep,
win
he
again.
won
I
Portland.
just don't think he's going to. So there you go.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think
Is there anything else you want to say from the? Is there anything else you want to say on the IndyCar front?
Looks to be an interesting field. I am looking forward to the race. I like the Barber Motorsports Park track, and yeah, I'll certainly watch the race if I can.
Right.
and watch
so-
out for Charlotte the Spider.
Yes.
Right. Anyway, I think it's about time to end. I want to thank a few people first. Thank you for Caitlin Penny commentary and Chris Whitfield for unexpectedly joining us today. Thank you to our special guest Will Holtz for joining us. The link to his Instagram page is in the description below. Thank you to @FinnickArrow on Instagram for making the poster you've seen on your screen so far. That reminds me, thank you to Caitlin for actually streaming this.
No problem.
Thank you to Freya Edwards and SRI Smoking Puppy. Although they didn't write the script for this week, they have helped us in the past as well. So I'd say we should thank them. And I think that's just about everyone. So thank you for tuning into Motorsport recently. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Ta-ta.
Ta-ra!
Bye.